Good day, everyone. Welcome back to the Knowledge Trailblazer, where we look for innovative, interesting civil engineering topics to share with you, our audience. Please give us a thumbs up, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications. Today, I'm joined by Stefan Karlitz. Stefan recently completed his Master's in Engineering at the University of Stellenbosch. His thesis topic, a proposal to facilitate BIM implementation across the South African construction industry. So from our previous video, the benefits of BIM, this is a nice next step for us. And we are honored to be joined by Stefan, who has written a whole master's thesis around this topic. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Stefan to take us through his findings. Thanks, Stefan.
Thanks, Rian, for the introduction. Yes, thanks everyone that's joining us. Yeah, I think let me go straight to my presentation. I'm just going to share my screen. Rian, just give me a thumbs up. Must now be full screen. Okay, is that good, Rian?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. So thanks everyone for joining. So again, my topic, a proposal to facilitate BIM implementation across the South African construction industry. So I did my master's in civil engineering at Stellenbosch University, and again, I'd like to give my supervisor a big thanks for his help. I actually completed the master's last year, so I spent 2 years on this research. Yeah, and today I'd just like to give some feedback. It's actually a repeat of my thesis defense. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy it. So I'm just going to start with this slide. My quote for this master's was, "Always seems impossible until it is done," and it fits quite in with the BIM topic, because it is quite a daunting thing, this BIM adoption and BIM implementation, and I think it's the way to the future, and yeah, hopefully we can grow towards a better future. And then the contents I'll be speaking, I'll give some background, I'll go through my problem, my research problem, I'll go through the aim and objectives, the methodology, and then my findings and recommendations. So to start off with the background, we're living in the fourth industrial revolution, where we have digital transformation, and the world is changing, and we're seeing a lot of things: big data, cloud computing, smart cities, Internet of Things, a lot of interesting things happening around us. Yeah, and then with this comes building information modeling, specifically aimed at the construction industry. I would say BIM is probably the label used to describe digitalization in the construction field. A lot of other industries, such as medicine, manufacturing, entertainment, I mean, they have really, you can see technology really changing these industries, whereas in the construction industry, it's a bit lagging. But I would say BIM is probably, yeah, sort of one of the labels. But a bit more about BIM, what BIM is. So buildings and infrastructure are designed, constructed, maintained, and operated using information about the project. So it's all about information throughout these phases. These information include graphical data, non-graphical data, and documents. And this image to my right is an example of how some companies have stored project information, and this is a problem associated with old ways of storing this information on paper. It gets lost. There's a lot of repetitive work done, and it's associated with inefficiencies. And then digitizing and organizing this information could save time, money, and improve quality. So then, BIM allows for this information management process, and the acronym is often referred to as Building Information Management. So the aim of BIM, I would say, is to manage all of that information in a streamlined, cost-effective manner. Then according to the ISO 19650 standard, which is the latest BIM standard, it defines BIM as a shared digital representation of a built asset to facilitate design, construction, and operation phases to form a reliable basis for decisions. And a lot of people focuses on the design process, which is a great benefit if you design using BIM, but often people miss the benefits with construction, and then especially during the operational phases, which is actually the largest cost savings that can occur if you apply BIM and store your information correctly. And then some countries already, they have sort of initiated some efforts to adopt and implement BIM and encourage BIM implementation. Australia has a national BIM initiative. Ethiopia has a roadmap for BIM adoption and implementation. Ireland has a digital roadmap to guide the digital transition. Singapore has a digital delivery implementation plan. The UK, United States, all of these countries, they have seen the gap. They have seen the benefits associated with implementing BIM, and they have adopted these strategies and initiatives, and they are really performing in the construction field, and construction is getting better. It's getting more streamlined. And the problem with that I sort of identified, and that my study is all about, is that BIM uptake in South Africa is lower than in other countries. So just a little bit of background again. When I started my research, I actually wanted to see how you can reduce rework using BIM, and I found that just by implementing BIM, implementing this process of storing information and managing information, you already reduce rework. And then I found that the BIM uptake is lower, and that should be addressed, and we need to find solutions to get to overcome this challenge and to increase BIM uptake. There's currently no national guidance in terms of BIM implementation strategies or standards or guidelines. There's a shortage of research on BIM, very limited research, and there's a lack of BIM education and skills overall in the country. And then companies are losing competitiveness over international companies. I mean, we've seen the strategies that the UK, for example, have implemented, and their BIM uptake really makes the companies more competitive. So it's really something to think about. And then our industry is suffering from a decrease in client satisfaction and investments, emphasizing the need to implement innovative processes such as BIM. Then my aim and objectives. My aim was to develop a proposal to facilitate BIM implementation across the South African construction industry. So just on that note, I won't define my research as the ultimate solution, but it is, as the title says, a roadmap. So it provides some guidance, some framework to where we should go forward. And then I followed this aim with the following of objectives: gain an understanding of the challenges associated with BIM implementation across the South African construction industry. So identify the problem, the challenges, and then identify possible solutions in terms of initiatives and strategies to facilitate and promote BIM, and identify the role players responsible to facilitate BIM implementation across the industry. Then the fourth one, provide practical guidance for South African organizations to implement BIM in terms of best practices. Now, the first three objectives was aimed at the industry. So looking at the broader picture, sort of overview, looking at the government, education, and the whole demographics of South Africa, the industry. The fourth point, provide practical guidance that is more aimed at organizations specifically wanting to implement BIM within their organizations and within projects. So the methodology consisted of two phases. I had phase one, discussion with industry professionals. So I identified some contractors, designers, architects. I wanted to get a broad perspective, and I had a lot of discussions with people from the industry, watched educational videos. I had extensive literature review, attended short courses, webinars, seminars. So that was sort of the learning curve. Sort of actually in phase one, I really identified the exact problems and what are the questions we should ask to sort of develop the interview guide that brings me to phase two. In phase two, this was a more structured approach where I sort of had a bit of idea what was going on and where we need to focus on. So I had the interview guide and I had a focus group interview. So I identified, I think it was 8 BIM experts that had some knowledge about BIM. It was quite difficult to find experts in South Africa. There's only a handful of BIM experts since we are a bit behind the rest of the world. Therefore, I also had two international people that helped me, and I think 2 local guys that helped me. They also had some international BIM experience as well, and that's how they sort of became experts. So these people helped me with my data. I compiled interview notes, and through coding, interpretation, description, I had my interview findings, which I then compared with literature as verification or validation. And yeah, then I developed a proposal based on that findings. So yeah, to my findings and recommendations, addressing objective 1, it was to gain an understanding of the challenges associated with BIM implementation. And yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, I used thematic analysis to analyze this data. And I came up to, I think, 5 themes, and it was the challenges were associated to educational, legal, financial, governmental. Yeah, these were the 4 main themes of the challenges. And then some more specifics was educational, was misinformation about BIM. So not everyone exactly knows what BIM is all about. There's a lot of fake news, as people call it, or a misinformed idea of what BIM is and what it can do. Lack of skills in the industry. There's a lack of education and training. Universities are not necessarily engaging in BIM. There's a general lack of awareness. Oh, sorry, there's one I skipped. Cultural, yeah. So cultural, there's a lack of collaboration between companies. We have a very competitive culture in South Africa. So companies are not willing to share information or work collaboratively in using these BIM processes, which makes it quite difficult. People are quite stuck in their ways. There's a resistance to change. They're used to building a road this way and they don't want to build it a different way. Then there's some companies that are implementing BIM. They might implement it a bit differently or more maturely than other companies, and they also struggle to find each other in the midpoint and really engage in the project using BIM. Legal challenges are contracts are outdated. There isn't an industry standard to say that this is the best way to implement BIM. There is no, there's a lack of formal demand from clients. So clients are not always fully aware of what BIM can do. They don't ask for BIM. And then the traditional procurement system doesn't really support BIM processes. due to the sort of design build process. So yeah, that's just something to look at. Financial challenges include high implementation costs, which is probably the biggest challenge a lot of companies face. Yeah, there's high software costs. There's network infrastructure that have to be upgraded. Theft and vandalism is a big risk in South Africa. And yeah, people have mentioned that expensive software do not always match the specific industry or market needs, or the needs of that specific construction company. May it be like a very small contractor. Governmental challenges include there's no drive, no mandates or policies or incentives to really that focuses on BIM uptake. There's a lack of competency, and then technology adoption contradicts with all the job creation initiatives, which I believe should not really be a barrier or a challenge, because I believe that technology adoption should allow us to execute our job better and quicker and cheaper, so that we can use the money that we save to create more jobs. So that's just my view. Yeah, moving to objective 2, the solutions that are identified in terms of initiatives and strategies. Again, the themes included raising awareness, education and training, and promoting that, promoting pilot projects. So pilot projects basically proof of concept projects, show the industry this is what we can do, and sort of just motivating everyone else to sort of take the BIM route. Developing standards to show the industry this is the sort of proven way which could lead to, or which is the most likely process that will lead to effective BIM implementation. Updating procurement systems with modern processes, and then developing software that meets specific South African needs. Yeah, so these are the main and the government initiatives. So these are the main solutions or themes of solutions that was identified from the participants. Objective 3, identify the role players. So all that was said, it's all good that we have solutions, but who will be responsible for these solutions? And that was why this objective was quite important. And it really came down to these 4 parties: government, the education sector, private organizations, and software developers. So each of these parties play a very important role in the industry, and BIM uptake cannot really increase if not all of these parties work together to implement BIM fully. Software developers have to keep up with the needs of today's contractors and engineers and people in the industry of today and in South Africa, in the South African context. Educational sector should keep upskilling and training students. And then the government, they should take the sort of leadership approach and provide the framework and provide the space to sort of adopt these modern processes. And if it's not coming from the government, the private organizations should push, because as I've also seen is that a lot of the skill comes from the private sector. So yeah, ultimately it's a collective effort between all of these parties. Objective 4, provide practical guidance for South African organizations to implement BIM. So again, this was focused on not on the industry per se, but rather on individual organizations implementing BIM internally and then also in a project. So the best practices that I found was, number 1, determine the business value of BIM, or see how implementing these processes would really better your operations and better your business, because you can make a loss by implementing BIM. If you implement it wrongly, if you just buy the technology and you're not 100% sure what you're going to do with it, it might not work out profitably. Then develop a strategy to implement BIM in the organization. A lot of the participants have mentioned that companies implement BIM without a strategy, and that ultimately leads to failure because it's not just a snap your fingers process, it's a phased process that might take years, and strategy is quite important. Acquire external assistance. Internally, there might not always be the skills needed to implement BIM in the organization, and that's why assistants can be partner companies, companies that have implemented BIM, software developers, etc. Then sound change management practices. I think companies should be made aware that implementing BIM, it's not just the technology, and it's processes, and some processes in the organization will change. There might be new roles in the company, and there might be there will be some change management. And yeah, if this can be communicated clearly to the firm and clearly managed and monitored, that will ultimately. And then initiate the pilot project. Get your hands dirty and start implementing BIM. That's what a lot of the participants have mentioned, that the best way is to learn on the job. Sending people away on expensive courses does not always work, but implementing it on a project and sticking to these new processes, it might take some time to learn, but that's the best way to learn. And then objective 4, provide practical guidance for South African organizations to, oh yeah, we're still on objective 4, sorry. And then per project, not focusing on the organization, but focusing on the project. It's important to set up the project BIM roles and responsibilities. Who is responsible for what? Buy-in needs to be from all project stakeholders to actually take part in this process. BIM goals and objectives should be clearly identified, roles and responsibilities, and there should be formal documentation to describe the quantity and quality of information produced. So a lot of the participants mentioned that this lack of formal documentation is the reason for failure, because often when the client doesn't require this documentation, the process sort of lacks and it's not enforced. It should be a BIM coordinator and a data manager. So a BIM coordinator ensures the roles and responsibilities of each one executing these BIM processes are fulfilled. And the data manager looks more at the specific quality and quantity of data stored in the common data environment. General sound practices, they include collaboration amongst project stakeholders, setting up a BIM user forum. So this just helps people have questions, they know where to ask and where to go. Early involvement of the contractor. Digital BIM model schedules should run ahead of the physical schedule. And then don't design twice. Use BIM processes, so design in 3D from the start. Don't design in AutoCAD, then move to Revit or ArchiCAD. Go 3D, do the model from the start. Then come to my proposal. There was three main aspects that I identified that's important. The number one is leadership. Someone should take the lead, and someone in the industry should take ownership of implementation. The industry needs guidance, and everyone must trust this guidance. So what I proposed was a formation of a committee, a council, a task group, because this is what other countries have done. The name that I came up with was the South African National BIM Council, and then it could consist of members of government, education sector, private sector, and software developers. The reason why I said that is because all of these parties or groups in the industry play such an important role, and therefore if they could form part of this committee or task group, each sector is sort of accounted for, and you can have all of their inputs in this one place, and the communication gets streamlined from there. Strategy, very important. There should be a clear action plan or strategy for specific initiatives, similar to what other countries have done. They have some sort of action plan or roadmap or strategy, and then it should be clear. The goals should be reachable, and then it could form part of national development goals, such as job creation, or and then pilot projects could form a key part of the strategy. This is what Singapore have done. They really focused on promoting pilot projects to showcase BIM and to provide a proof of concept for other companies. And pilot projects also helps to establish standards, to say, okay, this didn't work, this worked, this is the best way to implement BIM. Lastly, so leadership can be there, strategy can be there, but if there's not accountability and roles and responsibilities, all of this is for nothing. And yeah, so roles and responsibilities is important to ensure the strategy gets executed. And yeah, collective effort is required from the main industry role players, government, education, private sector, software developer. Let's go to the, so here I sort of separated these groups. I had the BIM Council at the top, and then the 4 important sort of groups in the industry, and the roles I sort of see that they might have. So the SAMBC, they should be the leaders, the sole provider of the BIM information, so people don't get misinformed about what BIM is. They could develop and monitor the national strategy, and then the strategy could include the development of BIM standards that South Africa adopts, raising awareness through discussions, seminars, workshops, and the documentation of pilot projects or case studies. Government, they have the role to provide a framework with mandates requiring BIM deliverables for public projects, and these mandates can start with sort of soft mandates, where the sort of requirements is not as strict, and then later move to harder mandates where it's more enforced. They have a role to play in contracts, procurement, and then the government, since they are the largest asset owners of the company, they could move to think about digital and smart cities and how these digital BIM models could be used to improve maintenance and operations regarding these cities. Regulations and policies, and then BIM incentive. Looking at the education sector, they could develop a national upskilling and education program to sort of promote BIM throughout universities and colleges. They could continue doing research on BIM, specifically in South Africa, and specifically what are the skills required, the new skills required, because there is definitely a change in skill set. And I believe the civil engineer of 20 years ago might not be the same civil, or might not have to learn the same stuff as 20 years from now. They're going to still execute the same projects, maybe, but the way in which they deliver projects is going to be totally different. And yeah, the updating of university curricula, private organizations, so they have the responsibility to internally sort of embark on this BIM journey and implement BIM internally. And they probably have the most difficult job, because private organizations are obviously putting their own money on the line here. But yeah, that's why I also mentioned here, if you can determine the business value of BIM for your company, then it just makes sense, and then developing a strategy and implementing it. Although it's not as easy as said than done. Implement BIM and upskill the organization, and then yeah, another role is to partner with organizations and start sort of engaging in these discussions with other organizations and stop working in silos and sort of start collaborating and take the process forward together. Software developers, they have the role to provide software and to keep up with industry and market needs and trends, and they should provide the technical support. So that's my sort of the bulk of my proposal. I also have some general recommendations for specific architects. They can start thinking about going into BIM management, BIM coordination, and I'm sure a lot of architects are already doing this and have done this in South Africa. Asset owners should definitely look into financing, preventative maintenance, future planning, renovations, and utility management. These are all processes that can be improved by implementing BIM, and then collecting digital data and inform BIM requirements and deliverables using a formal documentation, and start with this smart city agenda. Then other consultants, they can go look into BIM services such as BIM modeling, BIM management, coordination, consulting, and then digital twin development or green building services. These are all BIM possibilities. Contractors digitalize the firms and start using and implementing the software that's available that could reduce the operational expenses. So where am I experiencing the largest costs? How can I reduce it using the available software today? Project managers, they will become very important, facilitating this BIM process to become BIM coordinators and BIM managers. Subcontractors, especially, acquire BIM software to develop fabrication models, and then suppliers digitize product data on BIM libraries. And I think we're already starting to see this happening in the industry. Then, lastly, recommendations for further research. Research could be done on the impact of BIM in South Africa, the new skill sets required, software needs, measurement of BIM maturity. How do we measure BIM maturity in South Africa, and how do we measure our progress? And then to develop case studies. How do we develop this? How do we portray this to the industry? How do we record the shortfalls and the benefits? Then lastly, BIM best practices to guarantee effectiveness, and this falls into developing BIM standards for South Africa. Thank you. Thank you, Rian. That was from my side. Are you still with me?
No, definitely. Stephen, I like this topic. I like the work that you've done. Since our last conversation, I really think you've covered a much needed topic for South Africa. I think the conclusions that you have drawn are well placed. Also using the other countries that are leading the way now, but they also have to start somewhere. So this can really influence the biggest stakeholders, as it provides that practical guide, as your topic promised, of how this can be incorporated so that, the biggest stakeholders can jump into action, give South Africa the platform to start using the technology for the betterment of the South African construction industry. So thank you for that. So you started off with the Mandela quote that was nice. So it always seems impossible until it is done. So in your opinion, what is the next step? Like, how do we take this further?
Yeah, Rian, I think the best way is to just start the conversation, and I know it is starting in some silos or some parts, but doing stuff like this and advertising and getting the ball rolling and just initiating conversations, and especially I think initiate conversations with the education sector, with the government, with software developers, and get them speaking to each other so they can fill in the gaps and fill in what is required and sort of tackle this together. It's not a one-man show. It's definitely going to require collective effort from everyone, different people, different organizations, different companies. Yeah.
Before we sign off, do you have any final last comments, thoughts?
No, I think I've said enough. As I said, I'm just excited for the future, and I really hope to see some efforts in the industry to sort of start promoting BIM and start seeing this happening and sort of changing the industry for the better.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. Can't wait.
Yeah.
So to everybody, thanks Stephen for joining us. Thank you for sharing your research with us. And to you, our audience, thanks for watching the Knowledge Trailblazer. I hope you found this video insightful and that you are left as excited as we are for this technology. So please give us a thumbs up, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications. So thank you very much. Until next time. Bye-bye.